3.04, LEA marketing TMEA as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, and good evening, LUHSD Board, Superintendent Volta, and everyone in attendance and watching online. I'm Kevin Meyer-Margolin. I'm a math and PATA teacher in my 7th year at Liberty High School. Go Lions! I'm here as a teacher, a relatively new bargaining team member, and as of earlier this year, a new dad. As you're aware, our LUHSD teachers and staff make this district. Parents move to our district to send their children to us every day. And we work every day to create smart, well-adjusted, lifelong learners and world citizens. Our teachers are working harder than ever to accommodate our growing, diverse student body, including more IEP and 504 students, and their meetings to create useful and appropriate accommodations. We are also working hard to create modern lessons. For me, I'm utilizing 3D printing in my PATA geometry class for the first time. We just completed our first project this week, which was personalized initial keychains composed of rotations, reflections, and translations. And my class and I also decided to make each of you one in Liberty colors, of course. So those are just like what my class made for themselves. Yeah. So I want to make sure that we're able to recruit and, more importantly, retain great teachers. We don't want to lose our great teachers to other careers because they can't afford to be a teacher. A growing problem as the gap between private sector salaries and teacher salaries widens. As I talk with some of our newest hires, I hear them struggling to afford the necessities, such as rent and food, as those costs continue to rise in our area. As a district, we must make sure that new teachers are paid a livable wage from the start of their careers at Liberty Union. Inflation hasn't just affected the newest teachers, it has affected all of the staff. The state's budget increases to our district have reflected this unprecedented inflation, and this latest ongoing increase of money needs to be reflected in our salary schedule. Due to the hard work of Assistant Superintendent Denise Regani and our bargaining team, we have worked towards creating a wonderful place to work with competitive salary and benefits. This school year, we started with almost no teacher vacancies. No small feat nowadays. However, this will continue to get more challenging each year. We need to continue to get teachers from surrounding cities, such as myself, I live in Concord, and know that we have teachers from Oakland, Pleasanton, Lafayette, Stockton, plus so many more surrounding cities. This ongoing LCFF money can help our salary and benefits keep us as a top-tier destination district in the region, so that all those teachers who choose to commute here, like me, choose to stay here. As I've experienced this year, having a child adds a whole extra level of financial burden and stress. When myself and other teachers are financially stable, we can focus on providing the best education to our students. With your support, we can make this the career and district I and others remain at this district until retirement. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call Liz up and share with the board 2 categories of one-time money and present some thoughts that we've had after talking with site leadership regarding the spending of one-time monies and seek board input on possible other expenditures.
Okay, good evening. Okay, as you know, when we did the 45-day revise at the last meeting, we have 2 one-time block grant monies that are coming to the budget that was not included in the original budget when we adopted it in June. The 2 block grants are the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant and the Art, Music, and Instructional Material Block Grant. This is a slide that shows a list of several positions and other resources that we're using from the current ESSER money that we've been getting over the last 2 years, the COVID, the ESSER, the EAR, all the extra one-time money. These are the things that we are actually using the one-time money that we currently have for the current year and next year. So this is just a list of things that are currently in the budget that you approved with the one-time money. I'm not going to go down the list, but you can see all the things that we have already been included in the budget and that we are planning to spend for both this year and next year. So just to revisit the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, it came to us as one time, and we have until 27-28 to spend it. It's distributed based on our ADA of our unduplicated count for 21-22, and our estimate for the current year is a little over 5 million, 5.2 million. And then there's some reporting dates that we have to make sure that we're reporting on how we're spending it. This is the allowable expenditure. So the money's coming to us, it's a block grant, and it's for a specific purpose because it's going to be on the restricted side of the general fund. And as you can see, these are the different areas that we are allowed to spend the money. The art, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant, again, it came to us at one time. It's distributed based on our regular ADA for 21-22. We do have to bring an official plan for this one to the board to have it board approved during a regular scheduled board meeting. And we have until 25-26 to spend it, and we're getting just about $5 million. And these are the allowable expenditures for this particular block grant. So we've had some discussions, since we had a lot of one-time money that came in over the last 2 years, we've had several discussions with the board, with cabinet, with executive cabinet. The principals have had several discussions with their school sites as we continue to spend the one-time money that we were getting. And we've kept our lists of things that have been of interest and things that have been needed at the school sites. So in your packet, if everybody, I don't know if everybody got a handout, this one's a little bit small, but this is a list of things that have come up for the Learning Recovery Block Grant, both new ideas and ideas that we have talked about over the last couple of years with one-time money. So for example, we have instructional minutes MOU for that we have negotiated with the LEA, and we currently have that in the budget with the current one-time money for 22, 23, 23, 24, and so we're recommending or suggesting that we keep it in the budget for one more year for 24, 25. These are just ideas, and I've tried to put dollars to the ideas so that we can get an idea of what the cost is for these different positions or improvements. So we have 9th grade lower class sizes. Again, that's the same thing with the instructional minutes of the MOU. We have decided to do that 2 years ago with the one-time money, and we want to continue it. This is where it could be budgeted so that we can continue it and guarantee it through 24-25. A student services coordinator is another idea. We currently have a nurse, a second nurse that we've been using since COVID, and again, it's been in one time, so this is a suggestion to keep it in one time. So you can go down the list and see the different ideas. We have a couple of special ed positions that we created, and the intent of this money, as you can see from the previous slide, is to continue with positions if need be. We're looking at trying to improve the gateway area and add a portable because we are growing in that program. So another idea is to take a portable from perhaps Heritage that we own and move it over to Gateway. But there are some costs associated with that when we initially looked at putting a portable at the Gateway campus. We are looking maybe at some technology upgrades, and those technology upgrades could go hand in hand with adding security cameras because we may need to grow our technology infrastructure to add additional cameras. And then other things that have come up is the special ed classroom at Heritage may need a kitchen. There's one classroom, I believe, with a kitchen and one without. It's a special ed classroom. maybe looking at some CTE classes for La Paloma, and then upgrade the resources to OCS or MTSS and Restorative Justice. Some of the things that you saw on the previous slide that we have in one-time money currently, at the bottom of the slide is suggested that we will put that to general fund so that we can sustain those positions as we move forward. So that's for the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. I'll go through the next slide and then we can have a conversation and talk
Well,
about it.
should we see if there's any questions about any of those activities on there?
Or if they're gonna come up with stuff.
Leave it on the next one. Leave it until they have.
Okay.
So this is the Art, Music, and Instructional Material Block Grant. Again, these are things that have been either on, for example, the Heritage Science area. That was something that we were trying to do with Measure U. We probably won't have additional funding for Measure U projects once we finish with the Liberty classrooms. So this could be an area that if we wanted to continue with that project, we could potentially pay for it there. Allocating additional resources to the sites for things such as VAPA or any other extracurricular. So we just put in some numbers up there for additional resources for the school sites. Bells and clocks, I don't know if that number is accurate, but we talked about doing bells when I first came here at Liberty, and it was like 150,000. So I need to work on fine tuning those numbers, but again, make sure the bells and clocks work at all of our school sites. Freedom has a newer system. NPR fencing at Freedom, that is the security proposal for the NPR, and that has come up several times over the last few years, and it's 100,000, so it's a little bit pricey. PE lockers is another thing that's been discussed. Again, it's a very expensive improvement, but much needed. The lockers are pretty old, and there's causing some issues over there. Study hall furniture, looking at improving maybe some of the study hall furniture at each of the sites. And then some other ideas, at La Paloma. Again, cameras and screens in the gyms. I know over the course of the last 5 years, we've looked at maybe putting some projectors in the gyms so that we can do professional development and do some presentations with a large number of people. I think the estimate when we did it for Heritage was probably like 200,000, so it's not a cheap thing to do. And then classroom furniture, all the sites are looking at needing classroom furniture to replenish and replace. And then looking at library upgrades for Liberty, internal, external, and kind of making it look as we move through the Liberty campus and try to upgrade all the facilities there. So these are just some proposals, suggestions, ideas, and I tried to cost out as much as I could with estimates. So other, I just wanted to throw this out here. So for other capital improvements, so such as the library, other projects that we might have had on the Measure U list that we haven't gotten to, these are other resources available for capital improvements. So we have some money coming from OPSC depending on, every time we have to apply based on our eligibility with our enrollment. So based on how our enrollment does, it depends on our eligibility. So we'll have some money hopefully from OPSC with all of our construction projects. We do have some money in deferred maintenance that we could potentially do, but we have been using that along with some one-time money for HVAC replacements. We're trying to, we've been painting all the buildings over the last couple of years, and now we've been really trying to make an effort to replace our HVACs because they're all both at Heritage and Freedom. They're at the end of their life. Developer fees, we get that. That's for growth, so that hopefully will help us offset the money that we don't have in Measure U to get our classrooms built. And then Fund 40 is money that had come into this from us from the state, from the science wing, that we can perhaps use for the library or other improvements at Liberty that need to be done. So, you're up.
Questions? We have your questions.
Yeah.
Of course, thank you. Good job, and it's difficult to have conversation about how to spend money, right? So everybody wants part, but I have a couple of questions. First, well, I don't even know where to start, but on one of the slides, I saw some suggestions about professional development. I think it's very important and it's so good, and that not enough. I mean, it's like I would like to see how we can develop a program for professional development to help people that are, you guys said Title IX training. I mean, training that is going to help people live with the students that we have, and also provide information, education to help them do the jobs that they need to do. So, you know, more for professional development, really. And then secondly, talked about the arts and music instruction, you know, materials, and everything that was in the art and music and instructional material didn't say anything about art and music. So I was just wondering if, like, the schools probably know, and we talked about this and you guys said you were looking into this, what they need to be able to provide for those programs, and also CPE. And maybe there's a way to pull some of this aside and give to them for them to do at their discretion type of a thing, make sure that it's for whatever purposes. And then I think about La Paloma, and I'm going back to professional development, to help our teachers and staff there deal with the stuff that needs to be done there in terms of, you know, curriculum and instruction, and helping that group of people deal with the students that they're getting, and make the, you know, education, you know, where it needs to be. So I mean, but that's just a tiny bit of the stuff I wrote down. But I will give it off to somebody else. But just thank you, you know, for this.
Tamara, if I might, just to comment on your questions. VAPA, Visual and Performing Arts, that would be on top of whatever the schools currently allocate.
Right.
They're not, well, it's been made clear to the principals that for VAPA on that second slide, that's in addition to already what Visual and Performing Arts are getting. So arts, media, performances, that would be an additional $30,000 a year for the next 4 years for our sites. The other part, our thinking was, during this time as we're coming out of the pandemic, all of our staff members working on fundraising for extracurricular activities, the kids doing that, the stress, trying to help alleviate that. Again, that is to supplement and not to supplant what is being given in the site allocations. And with that professional development, again, that is in addition to what we currently allocate through either ed services or what principals already are doing. So all of this is in addition, and actually the things that you pointed out will be under site discretion, not district discretion.
It's site discretion. And I did have a question about what you talked about restorative justice and what that means. Like what money, what is it that you're talking about when you say that? What are the specific activities?
That was up there. We didn't put a dollar amount under the initial part. We could use it for under the second grant, but making our in-school suspension centers, our on-campus suspension centers, having a few more tools in there other than sitting down and looking at the walls in terms of restorative justice, whether it's online classes, online programs, some other things that we could possibly do in there, plus the training of the people in there to be able to implement those things. So that's something that we thought of from the student services side of things.
It would be really cool to have a little presentation about what you guys come up with on that regard.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Donna. Pauline?
Liz.
I have a question regarding, in the yearbooks for each site and TLC programs, all leaderships, how is that in the funding? What category is that in?
That would be part of the site discretion.
Before I even go further, I want to thank all those teachers that are out there. I value every single one of you, of all the things you do for us and for our students that are former and future. So I do value that, so I want you to know that. I know the board does as well. So I want to thank you for being here. I know with the pandemic and everything else that's new, we have to deal with so much. You wear so many hats, so I want to thank you for that. So all sites, second nurse, there's 2 nurses that we have for all the sites. What about counselors? I know we talked about the amount of counselors we have.
So we added a 6th counselor
That's
this
good.
year,
That's
and that's funded in general fund. That's
Okay.
one of the ones that's below the line, because we're not using one-time money for that.
Okay, and then last, I like the idea that we have low class sizes, especially for the lower level of our age group, so they can get transitioned into the high school level and then get ready for their whatever they decide on. That's it. So
Liz, is that number just for the 9th grade class sizes, or is that for the additional lower class sizes?
That is lower class sizes, 3 FTE per
3,
site.
okay, so that's what that 900 is.
Okay.
Beginning of last year, we allocated 3 FTE per site to lower class sizes in freshman English, Algebra 1, and in other classes that we thought might be heavy due to students retaking classes. So that was in addition to an additional FTE that we did from the previous years.
okay, great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you, Liz.
Are there any comments about something that you are thinking could be on the list that you didn't see? In terms of, especially as you look at the second list, do you have any input on something that you're not seeing there?
No, just okay.
The one thing that I would like to see a dollar sign somewhere along the line is in the library upgrades. And I have been harping on that one for some time. So if we can just put some figures in there as to whether we do one plan or a different one, so that we know what it is that we're talking about and whether or not it's feasible to do something short term or blow it all up and do something better than what we have.
And then on that second page, Liz, there's that all sites extracurricular money over 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something we should look at, whether it's materials for teachers, make sure they have that within an ample time.
So even more to the site allocation
Absolutely.
for other purposes outside of, on top of
Yes.
what people might be fundraising for.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And thank you so much.
What I was going to say was, of the things that were mentioned, the only thing that I would say is just more fleshed out to understand what it actually means, just like what you heard Yolanda say, what she's talking about the library, and Pauline's, she's talking about the extracurricular, but we've all mentioned some things, and so that's what we, obviously that's what we want to focus on. We'd like to see it more fleshed out like that.
Yes.
It'll be tricky in terms of flushing
because
out,
you're saying
because
that
if
it's
it's
going
a
to the
site,
site.
if it's under the site direction, we can have reports back as far as how the site's used it. But unlike the great state of California, if we're gonna give money that's gonna be used in addition, we don't necessarily want them to write the plan and go through everything else like we've had to for the last 3 years. Every time there was new money, there was a new plan to our LCAP, and so, you know, we really wanted to make it site discretion.
But not too loosey-goose.
Right.
Well,
Like if it just says,
Yeah.
if it just says restorative justice, for example, with no money next to it, no
Right.
activities.
Right, we're looking
Same
like-
thing with library, no
Right.
kind of.
well, we would come up with exactly what that looks like.
Okay.
Very early on, we had
Yeah.
PK look at what some library upgrades would cost
Right.
to Liberty. We don't know how much longer the city's gonna be in the library at Freedom. I've heard maybe as short as 3 years, and we get the full building back, and we might have to spend some money to do what we do there. You know, the other thing too is some involved with the professionals helping our students outside of the classroom, so that when they do go to class, they're thinking about algebra or making my initials But we are running out of space for these professionals to actually meet with students. In fact, you know, I know Heritage has converted some storage closets over to offices, so those are some things that we might need to.
Darn good. It's amazing.
Not saying
Yeah, I got it.
if the shoe fits or if
Yeah.
the closet fits, throw it. But there are some things that we need to look at
Yeah.
because we've all lived through those, you know, people that have been around for as long as possibly the LEA president. Remember, there's good times and there's And, you know, preparing for those bad times when the answer to any kind of additional funding is no for some of these extras is probably a good tack to take right now. And that will do.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz.